Hey everyone, welcome back to part 2 of our little 3-part series on our thoughts on the carnivore diet. And so in the previous episode, we talked about why are people successful, and it's basically because a carnivore diet is a high protein elimination diet. So they experience positive benefits in body composition. They remove any potential insulting compounds that affect their intestinal health. So maybe they get rid of things that are causing bloating and gas, and that makes them feel better. And then something else we forgot to mention, but it definitely comes to play, is they're running on stress hormones the whole time. So they feel really energetic, right? When you're not supplying glucose to your body, you're going to have higher levels of cortisol, higher levels of epinephrine, higher levels of norepinephrine. And all of this is just going to make you, be jacked up. That's why it's the same reason people love the feeling when they're fasting, is because those stress hormones come up and they feel good.
Feeling.
Yeah, and then amplifying it with things like caffeine. Yeah, it's a great feeling. It's euphoric.
Cracked out.
Yep. But again, all of those are short-term things
that have long-term consequences.
Yeah, and so in the second part, we're going to touch on some of those long-term consequences, specifically some of the hormonal aspects, and then also the gut. And so to start, let's talk about thyroid hormone, right?
Yes, we need carbohydrates for T3 conversion.
Yeah,
And so where are you getting that if you're on a carnivore diet?
Exactly.
You're not.
And a lot of people are going to say gluconeogenesis, right? But that process is driven in part by cortisol, which suppresses T4 to T3 conversion. Yeah. And so this isn't saying you're going to become hypothyroid. Okay, we're not saying that. We're not saying like your thyroid's going to bottom out, you're going to be in trouble. What we're saying is that
I'd love to see some labs. I mean, I've been dealing with lab work for years, and I've never seen anyone on a low carb or a protein sparing modified fast that had adequate thyroid hormones. So if that's you and you've been on a carnivore diet, I want to see it.
Yeah. And so again, we're not saying you're going to be rocked out, but your thyroid system is going to be working overtime. You're going to have more TSH pumped out to try and stimulate your thyroid gland to put out the thyroid hormones.
And we just don't know the long-term consequences of that.
Yeah.
So if someone is on a carnivore diet, I would like to see them on supplemental thyroid hormone. Like, your body is not going to make it out of nothing.
Yeah, or better yet, just supplement some carbohydrate from, I don't know, honey.
Isn't that what the carnivore
Paul Saladino started
or
doing
some
that.
of them drink milk too. Some of them do. And so that will provide some glucose as well.
Yeah, and so something that we want to do throughout these videos is kind of provide ways to circumvent these issues while still trying to adhere as best you can to the diet that you enjoy being on. So again, if you're benefiting from a carnivore diet because it's high in protein, it's removing insulting gut compounds, all of that stuff, then you're going to be fine adding in a little sugar from honey or milk, and that's going to benefit your hormonal system. It's going to benefit thyroid conversion and thyroid function while still maintaining the carnivorism of it. And while
estrogen, progesterone for you ladies, like, we need carbohydrates or it's going to be suppressed. That can lead to like cancers down the line. Like, you have issues down the line. Yeah, bone mineral density, heart disease. Like, there's big picture issues that are going to come into play later on. Yeah. You might feel good now, but that's not, I mean, we do know things about physiology that can't be disputed.
What about doing what if someone just likes the protein sparing modified fast aspect, and isn't hell-bent on the carnivore stuff, and then wants to do a carb up every weekend? Would that help with thyroid? Or does it need to be more consistent carbohydrate intake?
It has to be consistent for health, but what I could see a protein sparing modified fast working for with carb ups is for a short term, weight loss kind of thing. Short term being a year, even if you have quite a bit of weight to lose, that's fine. Just once you're done, going back to a more balanced way of eating.
Yeah. Okay. And so then outside of kind of that hormonal aspect, so the negative hormone thing, to sum up, is chronically high stress hormones, low thyroid function, both circumvented by incorporating some more carbohydrates in your diet from things like dairy or honey. There's no fibers there. It's not going to upset your gut, assuming you're lactose tolerant, and it's going to help maintain a
Yeah, and
healthier
I think
hormonal cascade.
estrogen and progesterone need to be for women.
Yeah.
Carbs are pretty important for that.
So what's the other aspect? The other aspect is the gut, long-term consequences on the gut. We've touched on this in previous videos of ours, but you know, at the risk of sounding ridiculous, because I don't like when people do this, but the evidence on the effects of low fiber, high protein diets on the gut is pretty clear cut when it comes to long-term consequences for the microbiome. Okay. The microbiome feeds on whatever makes it down there. And if you're not providing non-digestible carbohydrates, aka fibers, then they're going to start feeding on the mucosal barrier of your intestinal tract to get the glucose that is used to make mucus down there. That's going to increase permeability in your gut, and that's going to increase the absorption of things like endotoxins and other harmful metabolites that are produced when those bacteria metabolize proteins and amino acids and peptides, right?
Yes.
So
a lot of the carnivore diet advocates say that the reason carnivore is superior is because you have less endotoxins. So you just explained how that is not always true, right?
Yeah, you might actually have a net decrease of endotoxins because the bacteria that make those endotoxins aren't really going to have much to feed on to create the endotoxins. But it gets counteracted by the fact that any endotoxins that are created have enhanced absorption due to the leaky gut, and also the fact that the bacteria are going to start shifting away from ones that produce beneficial metabolites like short-chain fatty acids towards those that produce harmful metabolites like thiols, indoles, and branch-chain amines. And so basically, you're just going to have a protein putrefaction factory in your gut, and that's detrimental. And we have numerous studies in animals and emerging research in humans showing that to be the case. So how do you get around this? Well, you get around this by incorporating fermentable fibers into your diet. Yeah, hi. You want fermentable fibers in your diet that ideally would be prebiotic, meaning they specifically benefit the growth of beneficial bacteria. These are going to be things like lactulose, partially hydrolyzed guar gum, resistant starches, which you can get because, again, they're resistant to digestion. So you're not going to be supplying glucose to your body. You're going to be supplying a substrate that beneficial bacteria can ferment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really carnivore to use supplemental fibers, right? Carnivores have low fiber diets.
This is the problem with any extreme diet like this. Like veganism, the same thing. You need to take a handful of supplements to make sure you're meeting your nutrient requirements. The same thing goes for carnivore. You're going to need to supplement if you want to even optimize health a little bit.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, to kind of use a common argument out there, a lot of carnivores will beg on veganism, saying it's not natural. We evolved eating meat, right? And we have a anatomical and biological system that clearly shows we're designed to ingest, digest, and absorb meat. Same exact arguments could be made against carnivorism. You know, our anatomy, our biology is designed to ingest, digest plant matter. We get a lot of nutrients from plant, and more importantly, we get a lot of nutrients from our microbiome, which relies on the fiber plants provide. And so, yeah, it's a naturalistic fallacy, right? But we evolved eating plants, and they supply things that we might not need for survival, but we certainly need for optimal health.
Great.
And so I think that that's all we wanted to touch on in this video. In the next and the last video, we're going to be talking about the safety of high protein diets. So if you'd like this content, then awesome, that's what we're trying to do. And if you know someone who you think would enjoy the information we're presenting in this series, then please share these videos with them. Thanks.
Bye.